I'm really good at buying stuff on eBay, but I also happen to be pretty bad at selling it again. So this creates an imbalance situation in my office. But as I was preparing to sell all this stuff, I realized that this would be my last opportunity to make a video about the X100 series, at least while it's in my possession, because I'm going to be selling my X100T, and no, I will not be buying an X100F, and no, I don't have any plans to ever purchase an X100 series camera ever again, unless Fuji made an X101X, because that would be a palindrome, and that would be rad. Now, when I make videos like these, where I talk about my reasons for not choosing a camera, people tend to get mad and feisty, especially if it's a camera they love and have purchased. And you know, I can appreciate that. I can understand why someone would get a little bit feisty. But before you take a sledgehammer to the thumbs down button, I do think that this is a great camera. I don't regret a second, a single instant, a moment that I've had this camera in my possession. So before we get into the reasons why I don't feel like the X100 series is right for me, I want to talk about who it is right for. Who are the people that could benefit from the X100 series and who should look at the X100F or T or whatever. Here's reason number one why you should consider the X100 series. Fuji knows how to put together a camera. The X100 series, they're just beautiful looking cameras. They feel right, they look right. I don't need to tell you that though. If you're attracted to the look and feel of this camera, you know why. And not everyone's gonna get that. There are those photographers who may get the appeal of the looks of it, but might think, well, it's just a tool. But to those photographers, I would say, don't discount the way the camera makes you feel, because that is an absolutely important part of inspiration. If having a camera like this inspires you and gets you excited to go and shoot, well, then why wouldn't it be worth the investment? And it absolutely has done that for me. I get excited to pull this out when I'm out on the streets. It feels right to be in that setting with this camera. It just does. People bring up gas or gear acquisition syndrome as this terrible negative thing, and I mean, yeah, it can be, especially if you're not responsible about it. On the other hand, I would not have taken half the photos that I've taken if it weren't for being excited to play with a camera. I don't feel like I've wasted time and money, even on cameras that I didn't particularly love. If they got me out shooting because I was anxious to try it, well, for me, that's a win. Reason number two is it's actually a pretty affordable leaf shutter system. And that's beneficial to those who need higher flash sync speeds or built-in ND filters. And I actually do know of a few photographers who shoot with this professionally, lifestyle or studio or otherwise, and that being a very important reason. The other thing is that it's fairly compact as a series. It's pocketable if it's cold and you've got a big jacket pocket. Stealthy, slim. I have enjoyed not having to take a bulky camera out when I've reached for this. Reason number four, if you are in love with a 35mm focal range and it's what you shoot 90% of the time, then it's an awesome way to get into that sort of shooting. If that's what you plan to shoot for 90% of what you do, I mean, don't hesitate. And just to compare, if 35mm is what you shoot and that's all you want, you know, if you're gonna get into something comparable, you're going to be purchasing an X-T20 with the 23mm f2 lens. And that's gonna be $150, $200-ish more new than a new X100F will be. So you'll save a little bit of money if you only plan to shoot 35mm. Reason number five is that it has an OVF option through the viewfinder, which some people really value. They like seeing real life through that viewfinder. And it's actually a reason why a lot of people won't move to mirrorless. If that's you, and you're tempted by the mirrorless offering, but you like seeing real life through a viewfinder, then, you know, the OVF flexibility that these cameras give you might be enticing for you. Personally, I didn't like it. I don't mind seeing through the eyes or the filter of the digital realm. So let me give you the reasons now why it's over. Or more importantly, who this might not be the right series for. Listen, babe, this is hard, but I want you to know that it's not you, it's me. Will you remember me? Some of these are personal and mostly relevant to me, but some of them I think are more universal to other people depending again on what type of shooters they are. Reason number one is every time I head out on an adventure or to go do something fun with a family or whatever, I always go in to my rack of cameras and I grab a camera. And for a while I found that I was reaching for the x100 because of lots of reasons. The reasons I've already listed. It inspired me and it was fun. Just all around, versatile, good camera, small, and that was the one that I would grab if I was gonna go do anything fun. But a couple weeks ago, Fuji sent me an X-T20 and I was able to play with that for several days, and I did 3 videos on it. Spent a lot of time with this camera, but what happened was I went to a family event just a few days later when I no longer had the X-T20. I went to my camera rack and I grabbed that X100T and I went to that family event. But what I found was, it happened multiple times, I would go to get a shot of maybe one of my kids or a niece or a nephew or a pet, and I would hit the back of that screen expecting a touch screen interface. I realized right then, okay, there are times where I want this. Now, I'm a joystick guy, I've said it before, and for most of my serious shooting, street, otherwise, I'm not gonna need a touchscreen, except in those times when I've got that camera down low or at a strange angle, that it's just super handy. And I really missed it pretty bad. At that point, I really wanted the X-T20 back with the wide angle lens, and I would have traded it if I could have. Now, many of you will say, oh, I'm sure eventually Fuji will put out a touchscreen on its X100 series. Yeah, I'm sure they will as well, I agree with that. But I still stand behind that I probably won't get in the X100 series because of reason number 2. My favorite lens, the lens of all lenses I think I've ever used to this point, is the 16mm 1.4. That lens is sublime. There's something magical about that lens. So what's happened lately is that when I've got those photos in Lightroom and I'm looking at them again, I'm wishing that these 35mm shots were just a little bit wider, a little bit more distorted even, a little bit wider field of view that is only provided and offered by like the 16 1.4, which those who have shot with that lens will most likely agree with me, because I hear this often. There's something magical about that 16 1.4. There is this feeling I get when I'm looking through those photos. The colors seem more right than other lenses provide. Everything feels right. The skies look better. The skin tones look better. That lens just has it. I don't know what it is about it. I don't have any science to back up my claims here. But that lens, there's something special there. And so for me, there's no question anymore. When I run out that door to go do something fun of what I'm gonna grab, that lens, first of all, and then I'll pick a body to go with it. And if that's the X-T20, if that's the X-T2, either way, I've gotta have that lens if I'm going to be doing street or family documenting my adventures in life. Now, there are other things I could say in criticism of the X100 series. It doesn't have the performance that the X-T2 or the X-T20 has in many ways. It's also, that lens is probably not going to compete as well against the 23 2.0 of the X lenses. I mean, it's a smaller lens and it's different, so that's no surprise. It's well documented. A lot of people have claimed and said, and I've seen photos that seem to back up that it's a softer lens when it's shot wide open. Though, is that a lens you shoot wide open with? maybe not. But those things, they're less important to me. For me and for probably most people, those aren't reasons to buy or not buy the X100 series, because you buy it for other reasons. So having said all that, would I say you're wrong if you choose the X100 series? No, of course not. That would be just ridiculous and silly. And as I said initially, there are people who are going to benefit a lot from this camera. They're going to love it, and it's going to be perfect for them. And I already mentioned who those people are. But there are two groups of people, at least in my mind, that may not benefit from this as much. And one is, I don't think that if you're a dad like me, you want to take a lot of pictures of your kids. I mean, it could be a good camera for that. But the X-T20 with a 23 2.0 or another wide angle lens like the 16 1.4, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but it'll give you a little bit more flexibility, both with the angled screen and with the touch screen. That will open up opportunities for photos that you would have a hard time getting with the X100 series, or a harder time. The other person who I would try to dissuade from buying the X100 series cameras are the brand new photographers, those that are just getting into it, who are looking for their very first pro level camera. That's not to say that it's not a great camera to learn on, but there is at least two problems that you'll encounter as a first-time camera buyer. And I know you're probably drawn to it because it's looks, because of the price, but you're stuck with one focal range, and that is a problem. You really need to experiment with focal ranges to learn what is going to be right for you. I mean, that's taken me years to learn, and anybody who's been a photographer for longer than a few years will tell you that it took a while to learn what focal range worked for them. But you won't know that at first. So why would you invest completely into one focal range? The other reason why it's not as ideal is because you're investing into a system. And if your first investment is in a body and a lens, they're gonna depreciate faster than it would be if you bought a cheaper body and a nicer lens. Lenses hold their value longer. So anyway, it's kind of an equity thing. If money's tight for you or something you're concerned about down the road, I would start with a cheaper, older, used body and invest in that lens or those lenses, because those lenses you'll sell for relatively equal to what you spent if you buy them used. In many cases, they'll hold their value. Also, when I mentioned this earlier, but that 23 2.0 lens that's on the X100F is kind of soft, wide open. It's not going to give you as sharp of photos. And if you're a portrait photographer, you will be looking for some bokeh. You will shoot wide open pretty often, and you'll want a lens that's going to deliver for you in those settings, and this lens may not be the right one for that. And you may think, well, I don't really want to do portraiture, but that's not something you really know out front. If you know you just like taking photos, but you're not sure what, don't limit yourself. So for everybody else, I mean, there isn't a whole lot to dislike about this system. It's awesome. And I think one of the big things is that it inspires a lot of people to shoot. And for that reason, I think it's great. And if that's you, if you're feeling torn because it may not be the most responsible purchase, but you're so excited about maybe getting out and shooting with it, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we create too much guilt around that. The real thing is, and the real point is, to be inspired and to get out and shoot. And if you can responsibly invest in that system, then, you know, I don't regret it. If you're not sure, well, I'd say either rent it or buy a used copy and then sell it, you know, for not much less than you bought it for, unless you're bad at selling things on eBay like I am.